Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. My name is John, and today I'm going to be looking at the top 50 best-selling musical artists of all time in the United States. I specify United States because I recently uploaded a video about the top 50 best-selling albums of all time, and there was a lot of confusion in the comments. It was for the United States, people, not entirely worldwide. Once again, this list is accurate as of the end of 2020, and it was also again compiled by Business Insider. The trusty source is in the description down below if you want to see the full list for yourself. But let's get into it. Drop a like on this video, subscribe for the love of music. I haven't seen this list myself. I see Taylor Swift in the thumbnails, so I guess I've already got one spoiler, but the rest, I'm going in blind. I have an idea of what's going to be on there. I think we're going to see everything from obviously like the Beatles to maybe Led Zeppelin, Queen, other classic rock, but also you should expect to see some modern stuff like Taylor and Adele. My arch nemesis at number 50, it's the Dave Matthews Band. I just made a video recently about songs that I love from artists that I can't stand. I've never been into Dave Matthews Band, but like I said, they are massive. 34.5 million units. That is an astronomical figure, and that is the bottom of the pile. How high is this gonna go? Just another little clarification right above Dave Matthews Band, it points this out, but this is just based on album sales. I know that streaming is a massive factor now, but this is purely based on pure album sales. At number 49, Britney Spears, also with 34.5. They are neck and neck, Dave Matthews Band and Britney Spears. You know, hand in hand, bread and butter. She's a legend in the pop world, even if I'm not a massive fan, but the sales speak for themselves. 48, Bon Jovi, also with 34.5. Everybody is just stuck on this number and they refuse to move on. Bon Jovi is a complicated one for me because while there are really solid albums and even classic albums like Slippery When Wet, there's also others like Lost Highway that I have a personal vendetta against. My best friend's dad in high school would always have that album in his CD player. Take it out, man. Listen to something new. 47, There Is Queen. I thought they would be higher up on the list, but I definitely predicted this one. A lot of you guys were surprised to not see them on the best-selling albums of all time. Well, here they are on the artist, whereas maybe they didn't have one album that sold millions upon millions more than the others. They consistently sold millions per record that they put out, and that's what lands them at number 47 with 35 million units. 46, Def Leppard. That is a bit surprising. I sometimes forget about how huge they are, so pour some money on me. 35.5 million units. I don't think about them that often as being one of the best-selling artists of all time. But then again, they can still pack out arenas to this day. Not my cup of tea, but it's definitely somebody else's. Bob Dylan at number 45 with 36 million units. I think we're already starting to see a lot of my hot takes popping up because I'm not into Dave Matthews Band. I clearly wasn't crazy about Def Leppard. And believe it or not, as much as I might respect him as a songwriter, I think he's a great musician, Bob Dylan's voice just cracks my nerves. He's got tracks that I love, and this doesn't surprise me in any way to see him at number 45. Tupac at number 44. It's nice to see a rapper on here because as people pointed out in the top 50 best albums, the best-selling albums of all time, there was no hip-hop really on that list at all. So it's nice to see that Tupac kind of broke the expectation of, oh, rap doesn't really sell records or anything like that, because clearly Tupac did. 43, the Backstreet Boys with 37 million. That is such a larger than life figure right there. That, I swear to God, I say larger than life all the time. That was not even an intentional pun. It just happens at this point. And from Backstreet Boys, we go to Tim McGraw at number 42 with 37.5 million. A country artist, the first one that we're seeing represented here. This is totally a side story, but holy shit, Tim McGraw is freaking jacked, man. Look at this picture of him with the fish. He's like in his 50s. I don't even look anywhere near that good, and I'm in my late 20s. Rod Stewart at number 41 with 38 million units. That is a lot of lighters in the crowd with soccer moms going crazy on a glass of wine. 38 million though, I'll pipe the hell down. Also with 38 million, it's Foreigner. That's surprising to me. I think that's actually the biggest surprise that I've seen on the list so far. I know that a lot of people love this band, but I didn't really think of them as like one of the best selling of all time. Simon and Garfunkel with 38.5 million units. Simon and Garfunkel have so many classic records and ones that continue to sell well in their catalog to this day. Hell, I just bought a gift of one for Christmas last year, so obviously people are still snatching up their sound. I think it's great that new generations are discovering them, much like other bands like Fleetwood Mac and Queen. At 38, we have Chicago with 38.5 million. Get to dance and light up the night because Chicago made the list. 38 with 38.5 million, somehow that makes way too much sense. 37 is Eric Clapton with 40 million units. 36, Reba herself, oh man, 41 million units. I was a big fan of hers growing up. I was a country music kid, that's all my dad really listened to, and I got a lot of Reba in my life, not just the TV show of the same name, which was kind of funny, not so much in retrospect, but Reba is one of the best-selling and most respected country artists of all time. 35, Santana with 43.5 milli. That is just an astronomical figure once again. Santana got a lot of those sales, I'm sure, from Supernatural, but other records as well. I mean, he's been putting out stuff since the 60s, right? 34, Alan Jackson with 43.5. Now, this is one that I can get behind. Alan Jackson's so talented. A hell of a singer, a songwriter himself. Unlike a lot of country musicians, he actually writes the majority of the lyrics to his songs himself, which I have an immense amount of respect for. Super talented guy, Alan Jackson, and then from that we move into Guns N' Roses with 44.5 million units. That is not the most flattering photo of Axl they could have chosen, doing him dirty out there, but Guns N' Roses with albums like The Spaghetti Incident? Question mark, inflection at the end, and of course Appetite for Destruction gobbling up millions upon millions of certifications. This piling on, I thought it would have been a bit higher, but still 44.5 million. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band with 44.5 million. Turn the page over there to number 32. Bob Seger, definitely an icon of the industry. His songs have become standards and have been covered by so many different people, from Metallica to more neo-traditional blues groups. It's really nice to see how his music has kind of evolved into new generations. At 31, we have Taylor Swift herself, the queen of modern pop, 45 million. I honestly thought this could have crept into the top half of the list. I was predicting somewhere around 22, but I feel like this coming in at 31, for her to have only put out her debut album in 2006, we're sitting here 15 years later and she's already this high up in a modern setting where not as many artists sell that many albums, at least not in a traditional sense. She does. She's still done it as recently as Evermore and Folklore, which had massive debuts. Even her catalog re-recordings are shooting up the charts, so once those factor in, I feel like she's gonna move even higher up this list very soon. At number 30, you have Eminem with 46.5 million. I think he's gonna get passed by Taylor relatively soon. If it hasn't happened already, I think it will in the next couple of years. At number 29, Alabama with 46.5 million. Definitely makes sense for a classic rock appeal like that to continue selling well in the back catalog. Kenny Rogers at number 28, rest in peace. We saw him on the top selling albums of all time, and that once again added up to him making this list almost in the top half. At 27, Country with Shania Twain, 48 million. A lot of those came from one album that sold like 20-some million copies. That is just pure insanity, can't even fathom it, but she's obviously kind of sold a lot of very few albums. She went like 20 years without even putting out a record, and she still makes it at number 27. Kenny G at number 26. I feel like he looks a lot like Weird Al Yankovic. Hasn't there been a parody of that where they kind of do something together? That is, I think, a lot based on the Greatest Hits album, and of course some of their other classic staples in the discography. Never been a super fan of Journey, but then again, is anybody really a super fan of Journey? Neil Diamond with 49.5 million units, almost cracking 50 mil in pure album sales. That is the work of a legend right there. My God. I mean, Neil has definitely pulled off a lot of classics in his time, but I truly didn't expect to see him up this high. Time will tell, but onwards to number 23, Celine Dion with 50 million. The beat goes on there. 22, U2 with 52. There's just twos everywhere. U2, 22, 52. Is this really all that surprising? Everything from Joshua Tree to later years albums like How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb always do super well, but we will never forgive them for putting that album on our phones without our permission, Apple. 21, we've got Fleetwood Mac with 54.5 million units. But again, that catalog is still continuing to impress me at how many vinyl units and even CDs they're moving each year. So if the trend continues, I think that over time, maybe 5 years from now, they could crack the top 10. Van Halen with 56.5 million. Rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. That is pure insanity to see a hard rock band moving albums like that. From the 80s into the 90s, they definitely jumped up to huge figures in the sales. And now that Eddie has passed on, I think that a lot of people are just discovering them for the first time, so that could shoot up a bit further up the list. Whitney Houston with 59 million units. Metallica with 63. That's the widest gap I think we've seen so far. We go from 56, 59, and then 63 million for James Hetfield and company. That's something that you just don't think about sometimes. Metallica's selling that well. But also at the same time, even their last album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, an album like that is still selling really big first week numbers. I mean, they've pulled out figures that a pop star would do first week. Bitch, she's Madonna. It's 64.5 million. So many people, including myself, we're a bit disappointed, or at least surprised or shocked in some way, to not see her crack the top 50 for a specific album. Once again, I think Madonna is one of those artists that just continuously sold, from her self-titled debut to stuff like Ray of Light, Like a Virgin. Those albums all keep moving, selling so well. Number 16, you've got Springsteen, the Boss, with a very similar number, just over a million more than Madonna with 65.5, to no one's surprise. And number 15, the Rolling Stones with 66.5. We're just going up by a milli, apparently, every time on the list. 64, 65, 66. It's always nice to see the British invasion. You've got the Stones and a lot of other Brit bands that just kind of crossed over. There was Beatles mania, but then that didn't stop. In fact, I've said this before. I just honestly, a lot of the time, prefer music from the UK. Something about it. There's just a better and different and more unique flavor that I just connect to. Number 14, Mariah Carey with 66.5. This one was neck and neck with the Stones. That is crazy because they've been around for so much longer, but Mariah just kind of sweeps in the 90s and sells 66.5 million. Number 13, Aerosmith with also 66.5. This is a three-way tie. It seems very, very close. Obviously, they're probably rounding up to the closest half million, but Aerosmith, Steven Tyler and company, they're another one of those kind of legendary acts that don't put out music very often now, obviously, but they don't need to. They can kind of rest on their laurels because they set the precedent. They blazed the trail for so long. Top 12 time, we move on to Barbra Streisand with 68.5 million. Thank all of the moms and all of the grandmothers out there that have bought up Barbara's music for the past half century or however long she's been at it. I've actually never listened to a ton of her stuff, so if I'm totally missing out and speaking out of term, then whiplash me in the comments. In number 11, you've got George Strait with 69 million. George is another artist that I grew up with. I had his like 50 number ones compilation CD. I actually won that at a car lot. They were doing a raffle. My dad would always love to enter contests. He still does that to this day. But he took us down to this little truck lot and they were giving away prizes. One of the local country stations was there. And I won a George Strait Greatest Hits compilation and a t-shirt that said like 105.7, the country Q. Pink Floyd, yes, we take it back overseas to get lost in space In time, Pink Floyd, absolutely love to see them making the top 10. I think that their back catalog is continuing to just draw people in because there's such a lore and a mystery surrounding their music. And that's the problem that I do have with a lot of modern artists. They give it all away because social media encourages that. Let there be a shadow, a realm that we don't entirely know how to interpret the music, and it's gonna take some time to figure it out. That intrigue has put Pink Floyd up there at number 10. Inside the top 10 now at number 9, AC/DC, another legendary act that are a bit one-noted. I don't listen to them all that often, but I have a lot of respect for them, and 75 million album sales speak for themselves. Number 8, you've got Elton John with just a hair more at 79. He's still standing in the top 10. Elton, I've come to like and respect and love even more from a musical perspective. Him and his writing partner Bernie Taupin. After seeing the Rocket Man biopic, that thing was fantastic, and I have to say it, it's way better than Bohemian Rhapsody. The movie, that is. Way better than Bohemian Rhapsody, the one about Freddie Mercury and Queen. Moving on to lucky number 7, it's Michael Jackson, the king of pop himself with 84 million. He won't stop till he gets enough. And I think 100 million is definitely possible. Obviously, it's gonna happen posthumously, and it's hard to believe it's been so long since he passed away at this point. Fun fact, his single Black or White was number 1 on the day that I was born in December 1991, so I always have that connection to Jackson. The Piano Man at number 6, there's Billy Joel with 84.5 million. Okay, I'm starting to wonder and think that we could clear 100 million easily with maybe somebody in the top 5. Getting real serious now at number 5, Led Zeppelin. Holy hell, we just shot. I predicted that. I thought that maybe the top 2 would go for 100 million, but wow, from 84 to 111 million in album sales. I don't know if my mind has ever comprehended the fact that they had so many albums that sold as well as they did. And of course, as some people pointed out in the albums, the best-selling albums video, a double album like Physical Graffiti, it gets counted twice for album sales because it's a double disc and each disc gets counted as a sale. I do think that's kind of a cop-out that has helped them achieve that number in a way, but still, it's impressive nonetheless. Even taking that out of the equation, they would still make this list easily. Let's see who's in number 4. It's the Eagles with 120 million in album sales. That is another massive figure. I did expect them to be somewhere in the top 5 given the results we saw in the top 50 best-selling albums, but 120 million? A lot of people have that greatest hits album knocking around in their CD or tape player. Number 3, Elvis Presley with 146 and a half. I think my dad owns about 100 million of those because he's always been such a fan of the King.
We're about to go in on Dad, singing Elvis.
Let's just say every Christmas at my household, we were getting treated to karaoke renditions of Blue Christmas every single year, and I probably wouldn't have it any other way. It's great. What the hell, man? We went from like 111 all the way to 156 million. Garth Brooks, isn't he like one of the only people that doesn't have his music on streaming still? I know that the metal band Tool held out for so long, and Garth, I'm pretty sure he's still not on anything. Drum roll! At number 1, it is the Beatles. Who would have seen it coming? At number 1, it's the Beatles. Of course they are. I knew this was coming from a mile away. I think that was like one of the first things I said in the video. I think we're gonna see everything from obviously like the Beatles. I know, I'm like a psychic, a mathematical wizard. I crunched all of the numbers in my head and made the calculations and spat it out before I even reacted to the list, and I saw that the Beatles would be on top, and they did it by such a wide margin. 183 million units to 156 being the closest rival. Psh, knocking that off easy. It's not happening. You think they're bigger than Jesus? They said it themselves, and it seems like they are, with 183 mil closing in on 200 probably in the next 10 years. That was a list of the top 50 best-selling musical artists of all time in the United States. Were there any surprising omissions? Were there any artists that made it that you had no idea had sold this many records? I know there were a few surprises for me. I hope you enjoyed reacting to this in real time with me. If you did, then drop a like on the video, subscribe for the love of music, and check out a couple of recent reactions on screen now. Other than that, my Patreon and socials are linked in the description, and I'll be back soon for more on Beyond ARTV.